Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mornings with Martha, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning to each and every one of you. It is Monday, June 9th, 2025. Happy birthday to the Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller. For some reason, I always remember that his birthday is on this day. And so I just want to say, happy birthday to you, sir. I know you're probably 61, maybe now, 62. I pray that you have not just a good day, but a good year in light of all the things that we have going on. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So much is taking place. Today is really a good day for David Alexander Jenkins and I to have a conversation. Happy Monday, Tammy. Happy Monday, Bobby, Marguerite. Good morning to all of you. I see you. Good morning, Laura. She says hand pinky waving. Good morning to. It's so good to see all of you here. If I sound a little not so exuberant, is because there's so much that's been going on in the country, and I've been trying to figure out how to navigate this with all of you, right? Because this is why I'm on the air. And while we're covering topics that are important to each and every one of you, this week is going to be a doozy. We have people coming on Tuesday and Wednesday. You're just going to be like, wait, what? And I need you to take notes, y'all, because these are people that I don't always have access to. And so I want to make sure that when they come on, you're able to be ready and to acknowledge and to hear what they're imparting to you. Marguerite says, today is the day my mother transitioned 5 years ago. We're sending you love and warmth, Marguerite, for all of that. Before I get into the really heavy topics of today, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the 50th anniversary of Odunde, the Odunde Festival. There were so many people out there yesterday. Good morning, Kent July. Good morning, Monica, Beatrice. I see all of you. We're also going to talk a little bit about Dr. John Taylor, but give me a second. So, we got out there around 2:00. Thank God for husbands, because one husband dropped us off, the other husband picked us up. Laura was with us yesterday, so she got to hang out, and we saw quite a few vendors. Dang, I meant to. Let me see if I can pull it up. I met a vendor yesterday. She was the one that actually inspired me out of everybody that we saw, because there's beads and there are baskets and there's weaving and there's kente cloth and there's mud cloth and there are all these great hats. And every year I go and I say, so I had a little budget because I did not want to go there and spend a whole bunch of money. So every year I go and I say, you know what, I'm going to, and I'm just looking for, because I sent it to my producer. Met a sister that makes some pocketbooks that are out of this world. And I could not believe when I took a look at it. Her name is Elise. She is in Philadelphia, Southwest Philadelphia. I'm going to have my producer set her up so I can interview her. She makes these amazing pocketbooks, and I'm going to have her show them to you when she comes on. Unlike anything, they're like for elegant wear, right? So if you're going to something like an event in the afternoon, a luncheon, or something like that, it is the way she designed these things. They're made out of wood, and it was just absolutely something that we all I was blown away. So I'm going to interview her, and she was my highlight, and I'll post the pictures a little bit later on. Then I want to talk about Odunde so much yesterday, in light of everything that was going on in Los Angeles. I know David was there. Alexandra says, it was fabulous, David Alexander Jenkins. A pleasure meeting you yesterday. When I got there, he had a small emergency, so he had to leave. So I didn't see him, but I saw his cousin Joss, and she showed me what David was wearing, and I roared. David came in true David fashion. And so for those of you who got to see him, then you know what that was all about. So I'm grateful. I'll post those pictures a little bit later. I also saw Dr. John Taylor. So I reached out to my producer, my editor. And I asked him to pull that video from Dr. John Taylor. And the feedback that we've been getting, I've been posting 2-minute clips of our conversation, and people have just been blown away. So we saw him at a Dundee, and he said, "Oh my God, girl." the people. And so we're going to continue to have dialogue with him because it was very honest, very transparent. And we oftentimes worry about what people may think, but the truth of the matter is people want to hear these things. We just have to be brave enough to have the discussion about them. So I'm going to good morning, Nikia. Laura, yeah, the handbags were absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely. So I can't wait for y'all to see this, but we'll talk about that later. Let me let David in. Geez. Oh, well, Black Jesus.
Now,
David.
is it working?
It's working.
All right, praise God.
Is that the one I told you to order?
This is the one I went because I
Yes.
know. And so here it is.
David, you sound fantastic, my
Oh, I'm so
darling.
glad. I can't tell, but I'm, I'm so glad it's working.
It is working. It is working. And you sound wonderful. And you don't have to have that thing in your ear. And
Oh my God. Now I
so
can wear
David.
earrings and
So I
things.
saw Joss and she said, I got to show you what David was wearing. I roared.
Yes.
I said, David
Yes.
came to the. I know those people were looking at. Did you get people talking to you the whole time?
Oh, listen. And I move slowly anyway. So that's came through the village.
Ah, Lord.
But that material, which is the Ashanti material for royalty, that
Mhm.
material is so heavy, so heavy.
So
Each
you were
of
drowning
those
out there, huh?
each of those stitches was a pound, so I had to get home and take that off.
You were so crazy, but you looked amazing. So I
Thank
didn't
you,
get to
thank
see
you.
you, but and I think I got there just as you were
It
leaving.
must have been because the
Yeah.
rain began and I was out. When- Listen.
You didn't have a raincoat, an umbrella. Did you not
Well, it
think?
was the blow. I was not going to risk the blowout. And I thought, well, there
You
it
were not
is.
going to risk the blowout.
No,
That's
no,
so crazy.
no, ma'am. Aquaba, and you have a good day.
Yeah, but those who got to see you, honey. So I called you. Now listen, y'all know I'm sleeping by 5 o'clock.
You ain't lying. 4:30.
I called David at 9 o'clock on Saturday night and I said, "Are you seeing what's going on in Los Angeles?" David said, "No." I said, "Baby boy, take a look because we're going to have to discuss on Monday." Then at 11 o'clock, we spoke again.
I called
This is
back.
before midnight.
Did you see that he's? We spoke about this, and what I want people to pay attention to is historically, when a person in power comes up to a wall of the law and they want to get around it, what they often do is use police force against citizens. And so we in this country have a tradition of being able to protest, rally, block, really come to movement over public moments. We can come out to the street and cry and scream and beat our breasts. And that is one of the things which is protected about being a United States citizen, is this idea that you can protest government action. This in California, for people to come out and not with weapons. They weren't shooting people. They were blocking the road. They were forcibly stopping people from moving to and fro on the road because the immigrants who ICE was after, they did not want them to be able to take them away. And so the response from the federal government, not inviting, and this is really important. Normally, the governor of a state would invite the intervention of the federal government. No, no. The federal government this time decided to supersede the intent of the state. Gavin Newsom did not want this, and sent the National Guard into California to forcibly deal with the citizenry of the United States of America. That is always, historically, as we look through historic texts, it is always the start point for a mess. And we have Bloody Sunday. and we have Boston Tea Party, and we have what happened at the Crimea, and we have the French Revolution and the Bastille, and we have all of these instances where we see what happens when you forcibly send into a place such a people. This is this is really ugly.
So, California Governor Gavin Newsom accused President Donald Trump of the acts of a dictator for deploying National Guard troops to quell violent protests in Los Angeles. Newsom posted to social media a video of Trump saying he would charge state and local officials federally if they interfere with the immigration enforcement that sparked the protests June 6th, 7th, and 8th. By the time we heard about it, it was June 7th because there was so much going on and something popped up in my thing. I'm like, what the hell is going on in California? What am I missing? Gavin accused Trump of inciting and provoking violence, creating mass chaos, and militarizing cities. Those are the acts of a dictator, not a president, Newsom said. This was written by usatoday.com. So, David, when you and I began talking on Saturday evening, I had this sense of foreboding, right? And so we went to bed knowing that he had deployed the National Guard. By last night, they were talking about the fact that 500 Marines in Camp Pendleton in San Diego were ready to come up to Los Angeles to quell whatever it is that they're talking about. Gavin Newsom got on MSNBC last night and said in so many words, "We ride at dawn." He don't care. He said, "Come arrest me." So it is
I'm on my way. Yeah.
yeah, and so you can see that this is not going to end anytime soon. So I went to bed concerned that we would wake up to the Insurrection Act, but I believe that is where we're heading
I think
sooner
so
rather
too.
than later.
I think
And
so too. And
so,
I think that it is the clearest path to Donald Trump not needing to deal with election process to stay as president. And so when we talked about that, the clearest paths, what paths are available that Donald Trump could use to make sure that he never has to leave the presidency, one of them is the Insurrection Act, to
mhm,
declare wartime presidency powers, to create a situation. And you see around the world where they're first sort of picking at that didn't work, right? We're going to
right?
create a war with Canada. Canada was like,
Yes.
try me. The King of England went to Canada to open Parliament in Canada to show the unity between the United
Mhm,
Kingdom and Canada, and therefore the Europeans. So again, that wasn't going to work really well. You go
right.
and you go to the Middle East, and the Middle Easterners use the Trojan horse to overwhelm you. So no longer can you use the Israel-Palestinian conflict as a standpoint for war because you've now accepted the gift of the Trojan horse from the people who support Hamas. You so that's not going to work from a standpoint of war. You've felt that they've done it. The rest of the world has figured out how to play tinker tonk with the president of the United States. So now you turn to your own people, and this is not historically new. Again, you look at the story of the Bastille. You look at things like Bloody Sunday. You look at things like the Russian war that
Mhm.
happened after Crimea. So when we look at what standard path people who want to stay in power take to stay in power, this is not unusual. It is highly unusual, however, for an American president to forcibly send the National Guard against the people.
And remember, the National Guard being called in is usually the act of the governor of the state, not the president. So I
And
need you
usually
all,
usually for a
yes,
reason of saving, making safe the people, sending people
yeah,
home for certain reasons, right? Protecting the citizens against
right.
something. A big issue is going on. There's riots and marches, but the riots we're trying to go. We don't send the National Guard in to shoot the citizens. We don't send the National Guard in to it is very telling where we're going, and I think you're absolutely right that this is the strike of the pen. And again, I'd like to say to the listeners that this is something we spoke about, you and I, and sort of pinpointed June, the beginning of the summer, as the linchpin for when crazy would set off, and here we are.
Hold on. This is why. Hold on. I'm looking for something. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So I want to read something to you.
Mm.
What should we do if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act? Three strategies for public pressure and response are refusal, resistance, and ridicule. It's written by Truth Out. With President Trump constantly flooding the zone, there's a chance to think about the possible implementation of the Insurrection Act. One of Trump's presidential actions calls for the Secretary of Defense and Homeland Security to submit a joint report by April 20th. The report will offer any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. So let me read to all of you, hold on one second, what the Insurrection Act of 1807 is, because a lot of people don't know.
You do
The
know.
Insurrection Act of 1807 is the U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the United States. The Insurrection Acts provide a statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act 1878 that limits the president's deploying the U.S. military to enforce either civil law or criminal law within the United States of America. Right? So the act empowers the U.S. president to call in the U.S. Armed Forces and the National Guard when requested by a state legislator or governor. That didn't happen. He was not right. To address an insurrection in any state which makes it impracticable to enforce the law. To address an insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination of conspiracy in any states which results in the deprivation of constitutionally secured rights and where the state is unable, fails, or refuses to protect said rights. So it was signed into law by President Thomas Jefferson on March 3rd, 1807. They had major amendments 1871, 2006, and 2007. What does it mean should he enact the Insurrection Act? Do we have military all in our states? What's going on? What is
It means
happening?
that the powers of the states to be able to defend themselves and to be independent, because remember, we still are independent states, right? That's something that I think many people also don't understand, is that American is a conglomerate of states, much like the European Union, if you will. And that idea that we share a currency, that we share this and the other, but that, for instance, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is its own governing body, which receives federal funding, the federal government separate from the state and localized government. It means that your state and localized government does not have the power that it used to have, and that the federal government now acts as the fiduciary, if you will, for military actions, for everything that really it decides it wants to do. It gives complete autonomous power nearly to the office of the executive branch to make these decisions.
So Laura says, I believe the courts will come out against it. Problem is, what power of enforcement does that do to the courts to have their wishes carried out? I don't think the courts have the power that they
Well,
normally have.
so on paper they do, right? On paper the courts can say no, and the only recourse the courts then have, should that no be disobeyed, is to send the marshals to arrest the person that they have said no to.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the person they're saying no to now would be the executive branch, be the president. And if you said no to the president would have to sign off on sending the marshals to arrest himself. And
Mhm.
we know that won't happen. So what we see is a constitutional crisis in that the power which is to check and balance the president of the United States doesn't actually have the enforceability to do so. So while they could write a lovely dossier and publish it, it wouldn't actually. I don't think it would actually pan out to anything, because
Yes.
I don't see the marshals being enacted by the president to arrest himself.
And Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that some parts of it, that's what people are missing. As this was unfolding, because to Alexandra's point, she says, as I was watching what was going on in Los Angeles, I kept thinking of everything David and Marvel were talking about happening this month. I kept hearing David's words, we are to stay home. They arrested the president of the SEIU, and nobody knows. Maxine Waters went to try and see what was going on. Nobody knows. And the other things we've been talking about, people are disappearing off the streets, just
Van-
gone.
Vanquished by.
And there's so much going on at one time. It's still yet not a big. What do
Right.
we do? right? And so we keep saying, we in my family, the conversation is okay, everybody have what they need in their homes. Everybody, because if we are limited to movement, if there are military guards out in the streets, checking our papers, sounds familiar? Trying to make, telling us we're having curfews and we can't go here and we can't go there.
We've
We
seen it
kept telling
before.
you all, prepare yourselves. This is not a, this is not a, oh, it might happen. You're watching it happen in real life, right? And so there are reporters and journalists who are saying, we can't, did you notice how quiet they were? In fact, nobody was talking
No
about this.
national news program has picked up this story. It is the silencing of the media is
Yeah,
one of the
it's
scariest
frightening.
things. It is a constitutionally protected right of the media, and actually a duty of the media to talk about these things. And we see stories like Elon Musk and Donald Trump's catfight, uh, and we see no news about what is happening around the world protesting this administration, what is happening within our country protesting the acts of this administration, and nothing about the insurrections that are popping up around the country that are
And
militarized.
there's a lot of them, David.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, and we're not talking about them. There's no one talking about them. Sometimes I wonder if we should be talking about them because,
Oh, baby, baby.
but
Okay.
um,
Which is why I've slowed down. I was like, you know what? We talked about this in November and December. Come January, we kept saying I am not willing to go to jail for none of y'all. Let me just be clear. I'm not willing to disappear off the streets for any of you. We've had this conversation ad nauseum, and we're not. There's coming a time when we cannot discuss this.
yeah. I mean, to advise on one of the day is often the duty that I think of when I come here this morning and to other places to advise and warn of the day that the day is coming and here we are here it's here. And remember, folks, this is the tip of the iceberg, right? This isn't. There are still people outside walking around as though nothing is different from today than it was yesterday, and I caution us in our joie de vivre to reflect on. Wait a minute, if I'm not hearing about these things, what does that mean? What does that say? And so I think that we have to, at this point, really take a sober pill and enact all the things that we told you to enact months
Absolutely.
ago. Really, I mean, put them into action and move as though you understand exactly what is going on. Because Philadelphia is a very important city to the United States of America. It is a
Hello.
constitutionally important city, and it is
Hello.
one that will absolutely see the same thing.
And right. And so I got a message last night that they're roaming through Pennsylvania and Philadelphia today. So ICE is. So just listen. We don't know. We just
They are here. They are here. So that is my that is my tip to you is to say this is not the time. This is not the time. And and we need to understand that we are getting ready to walk into a totalitarian state if we are not extraordinarily careful. And I don't say that lightly. I say
yeah,
that everything in the stars lines up to point to historic
yeah.
moments before in life where this is exactly where we are. So it was very disheartening. It was a shock. I mean, when
Mhm.
you called me at 9 o'clock, I thought, oh my God, who died? Because who is on the brink
So,
of death?
but wait a minute. Alexandra says this is a lot of distraction. Alexandra, this part is not a distraction. The
This is the
distraction was with him and Musk. The part,
yeah.
what's going on across the states is not a distraction. In fact, they did not want us to pay attention to that, right? The
Yeah.
people are across the United States are using their rights and they have been protesting peacefully. It's the media out of the country that began talking about. Let me read this to you because I think
I'm
folk
gonna
just
I'm gonna get a power source. Be ready.
okay. It's the media outside of the country that has been actually giving what's going on inside the country. They're very afraid to have this conversation. So this is what I wrote. Not what I wrote. Someone wrote, we are deeply disappointed in much of the US media, grateful, however, to international journalists who are telling the truth. Here at home, the media is pushing a false narrative of LA riots using images of burning cars, fires that were started by police. Why? Because chaos sells and because they're afraid of losing access to Donald Trump. But this isn't journalism, it's complicity. Yesterday, the LAPD released a statement calling the protests peaceful. They had no reason to do that except that it was true. Meanwhile, the administration is planting instigators and inflaming tensions to justify its own lawless actions. No one, not even Trump, gets to trample the Constitution. This was written by someone. This was written by someone who's been following the media. This morning, Trump thanked the National Guard for handling protests they weren't even present for. That's how far they'll go to sell the lie. Trump wants this fight not to keep peace, but to justify using the military against Americans, a textbook authoritarian move. So people are out there, right? Really pushing forward. David, can I really see your toilet? Really, David?
Yeah.
Can I see your toilet bowl? Do I really?
Yes. Yes.
You got a whole
Welcome to the new
lot of room.
office. You know what? Can I tell you, in this house, there's only 5 spots where I can broadcast with daylight at 6 in the morning and
Yes.
sound. So,
Well, there you go. And so there is the big beautiful bill has so much in it that is insane, but I need you all to pay attention to everything. Pay attention to the fact that the media here are being silenced. They don't know what to say. If they say something, they have to be careful about how they say it. And so how do you navigate through all of that, right? So this part is not a distraction. It isn't. And on some level, right. And Alexandra, you're right. She said there's legislation to dismantle 2 branches of government buried in the pages. Terry Moran was suspended for a post about Stephen Miller, even though he told the truth from 6ABC. David disappeared. Monica says, I saw the video of them in Northeast Philadelphia, a highly Hispanic populated area. Do you wonder why the Hispanics are being targeted? There's so many of them here. They've grown. They've actually surpassed Black folks and are like in the 17, almost 20% of population of them. And these were the same people who stood up and said, we're voting for him because he's going to get rid of the illegal immigrants. And there's so many people, including United States citizen. He actually put something in executive order, went to Congress in April and said they'd like to be able to deport United States citizen. You all, I keep saying this is way more. Nobody is as safe as you think you are. Legacy media is struggling like nobody's business. There's a lot happening here. There's a lot happening here. So even folks like me who don't spend much time talking about the stuff, and I'm giving you the human interest stories that you want to hear, we all have to be careful. You know, there's so much going on. Marguerite says we get distracted by little things like the bromance in the Oval Office and ignore the real issues that are against the nation's people. And let me just say this, there's so many things coming at one time. You have to figure out what part of it do you focus on, right? So whenever you see there's a whole lot of stuff, you're going, wait, what are they trying to distract us from? And media folks are either resigning from their jobs, like the guy from 60 Minutes who had been there for 35 years. He's like, oh, no, listen, we are in deep trouble. I am leaving here because when I can no longer speak what we need to speak, as media about what is going on without being censored, I can't be here. So there are folks who have left. Dan Rather saw this coming a while ago. He rolled out and went on YouTube, right? So there are so many people, and people are being punished when they speak the truth. Joanne Reed, says she was let go on her day off. People are losing money left, right, and center. You are going to understand that what we know isn't what we can do anymore, if that makes sense. Right. So even as these things are going on, I'm watching the local news here. They're not even covering it the way we thought they would cover it. All the stuff that's going on around the country. And for those of us who say, oh, this is just a fight for white people, let me tell you something. All of us are on the menu. Yes, the white folks are out there doing what they do, but all of us are on the menu. And so what do we do?
Yeah, even now, right? Suddenly the screen goes blank. Suddenly things cut out. Suddenly chop. Um, what do we do? Is the thing is that, quite honestly, our butts need to stay out of the fighting part,
Yeah.
because then it becomes very easily an issue of race.
Yeah.
And so we, as a population of people who are darker than white, need to prepare ourselves for our own movements, prepare ourselves to be insular, to look at our family units and our friends and think
Hmm.
about it that way, and
Yeah.
to be prepared for rebuilding and reconstruction, right? What
Yeah.
happens at that point. But I do think it's still wise of us not to participate in the fight, if you
Oh,
will. Now,
listen.
I say that today. I don't know how I'll feel when they get to Philadelphia.
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Right.
and I can tell you that the people of Philadelphia are not the same as the people in LA, and that they are not people who are willing to just sit down and do nothing.
Lord
So,
Jesus.
so it's a very different place in space, and
Hmm.
I want us to be cognizant of what this actually looks like and means when it gets here. Um, we can see it now in California, but know that the Californians fight differently than the people in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and that the West Coast is, by stereotype, a rather peaceful coast of
Right.
people.
And
That
you
they
see
are,
all that stuff going on out there. The Mexican flags are
and this
waving.
is how they are responding. Um, what happens when you get to the non-peaceful people on the East Coast? How will they respond? Right, and so uh, it is a time in which we need to be prayerful, and we need to be quiet in our spaces to
Yes.
really say to our children, to our families, to those we love, this is happening.
Yes.
This is not a dress rehearsal,
Hmm.
and we have to be prepared to do something about the
Yeah.
happenings.
And staying home doesn't mean that you just sit there passively. It means you get ready for what's coming. Getting ready for what's coming is making sure that you have enough food in your house. Make sure you're able to do certain things, right? If there's oh Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus. Alexandra says that Monica Adams, two agents walked into the diner. My cousin and her granddaughter were having breakfast. The 10-year-old had a panic attack seeing them. Her mother was routinely pulled over in Mexico and Arizona for looking Mexican. So she taught her daughter how to stay still if pulled over or in their presence. It's crazy as hell, right? Nakia said Lester Holt left last month. And there are folks who are just like, look, we still got to make a living. What's happening here? But you can see things are shifting and changing. It really is. Who? Erica says, yes, when it gets here, not if it gets here. It's here.
It's
It's
here.
absolutely here.
It's here.
Joanne says, I read ICE agents lied to gain access to your homes, pretended to be regular city policemen, even wearing their uniforms, and they may say things like they're looking for a criminal. Monica says, everything is so hush hush, it's scary. Continually preparing and praying. Good morning. Good morning, Tiffany. So I in construction, there are usually white folks at the very top, but they're using Latinos, Mexicans, Hispanics to do the work. And whenever they're going and doing their work and if it's in private homes or in larger scale construction, do they show up for work? Is what is happening now? Like you're trying to figure out. And to your point, David, Philly, not so peaceful.
This is not the place where you come and stand in the road and think that that's going to be the end of it. I think the thing that people, um, as we watch what's happening in California, and we see them standing in the road with their signs and their flags and blocking as a barrier, as a human barrier from these ICE agents who are gassing them. Right, these people are throwing things into the crowd, and the crowd is saying, "You can gas it, we're still going to come forward." And the crowd, as a mass, is sort of linking arms and coming forward and stopping them. That pushed them back into the building. In Philadelphia, Philadelphians bring out weapons to fight. They don't they don't necessarily walk arm in arm in the street to stop you as a barricade. They
Mm,
shoot people. So my fear is, and this is why I say to brown people, stay home. Please don't be out in
mm,
the street with the gun. Is
mm,
that we, when we are under threat, often respond to locally Philadelphia police with met violence. So you came to my house with a gun, I met you with a gun too. We see what happens. So that's what we news that's so scary. That's what makes this place so
mm,
interesting, is that the citizens of this portion of the United States of America, this East Coastal portion, the New Yorkers, the Philadelphias, the people, the
Boston,
Baltimore
yeah.
folk, the Boston people, they're a little more chill. Like they'll give you 5 more minutes before they really shoot you. But the people in Baltimore and the people in Philadelphia and the people in New York, they shoot first and ask the question later. And I really see between the federal and the local at that point, and I think
And and
that's
and and the Philadelphians are so heightened. Like there was a major fire on Broad Street yesterday, and they were pushing us out to make a right turn. And there was a car behind us, and the woman was screaming, "Move your blah blah!" And I was like, "Lady, everybody is trying." Philadelphians have this heightened thing about them
you
that they
just
don't even think they're willing to lose their diggity dang lives. I've never
no.
seen anything like it in my life.
Yeah, I mean, and so imagine now an army of federal people coming to your house in North Philadelphia. I don't know about all that. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
this is not the place. And so as I watch what is happening in California, and I think, what does that mean? It means that when it gets here, if it's anything like that, and martial law, let's be clear, Donald Trump has already sent the orders to Philadelphia to prepare it for 2026, right? So the National Park Service are doing a lot of work right now using the Trump administration's orders to prepare this as the stage, as the center point for what is going to happen in the summer of 2026. If this pops off like this year, we're looking at an authoritative government standing up to declare a new constitution in Philadelphia. Please understand what that looks like, right? This is when I was saying to council members who were on what is the preparation plan. It wasn't because I was confused about what orders had coming down from the federal government. It's because I needed the who. I mean, and as you sat here, Andrea, asking, the answer was we don't have one. There
Don't
isn't
we
one.
don't we don't
We
we
haven't
don't.
thought about. We're still trying to move the needle on a haystack of luxury affordable housing for people who can't afford luxury. And we haven't gotten to a mass plan for war. And I think that that is a gross negligence, that we must now have the national plan for what happens in Philadelphia in wartime.
So you know where they are? Norristown. Folks been really quiet about that too. But Lena, you're right. They've been all over Norristown nonstop. More genteel kind of people, right? And a lot of Hispanics there. What does that mean for those folks? What do we have to have someone that we know personally get plucked off the streets before we say hello? What's going to happen? Marguerite says, when dealing with authorities, shut up and exercise your right to be silent.
Yeah, unfortunately, the authority now is playing a bit of Indian warfare, if you will, right? So they're not introducing themselves as the authority. They just come in. Many people are civil clothed people. They are civilian clothed people. They I think we're living in a time where it's not the knock on the door from someone that's dressed as an ICE agent who says, "Good afternoon, I'm looking for so and so." Like that's the old way. Now it's the neighbor,
I
and
said that to my husband. It
and
is. It is the
it's the
neighbor.
neighbor.
It is the neighbor that they go and talk to. The neighbor tells all your business, and you wondering, well, what the hell? We have to stop. We talk too freaking much. We
You
have
ask the
way too
neighbor,
much
that's
to
it.
say.
Neighbor comes and
Shut
asks
up,
you for a
y'all.
cup of sugar, and you open the door to get a neighbor a cup of sugar, and behind the neighbor with the cup of sugar comes the ICE agent to arrest everybody in the house until they decide to
I
go
don't
personal
understand
review.
why that's so difficult. We talked about that months ago.
Because people in America have never lived through the Gestapo. They don't know what it was like in Germany when Jews were plucked off. They don't remember what it was like to have the gold star. I told people when the new real ID and passport was coming out that that was the gold star of today. Now I know exactly who you are and where you are, and I can connect it to your social media, to every store that you've gone into, every
Mm,
restaurant I can see. And you guys see it, right? You know, you walk through somewhere with your real ID, and suddenly you get an advertisement to come back and buy things. How do they know that? Well, because your real ID has checked you into the store. So I know I can map out your entire location. Now you have a gold star on your shoulder. And when I need to pluck you off, I don't have to do anything but look at where your gold star is moving.
yes.
And so these are the things that I think we're not really thinking about what. other people have gone through. I was really lucky to have grandparents who lived through Great Depressions, and to have aunts and uncles who were Jewish and had gone through the Holocaust, and to have like I can move in the experiences of these other people and how they have affected what I know to be true in life. And so it is a moment for us of sobriety, but
Mm-hmm.
also one where we have to, if we haven't, research super quickly about what comes next, right? This is not new. There's nothing new in the game of chess. Chess is an ancient game. It is a masterful game played
Yeah.
well. But if you are playing checkers on a chessboard, you will lose every time. And
Yeah.
so I need us to be masterful in our strategy about how we move through this game of chess that is being played yet again, but this time here in the United States of America.
Yeah. Joanne says, I had a Hispanic lawn person. He finally answered me and sounded so nervous, saying he no longer had his business. Right. So that's happening. Alexandra says, I expressed to a family member, have your house prepared, keep your head on a swivel, and pay attention. But Marguerite says, a new constitution during the historic 250-year anniversary in Philadelphia, all happening next year in 2026, right? Joanne says, what will people resort to when they can't make a living, leave the house or school, food or from food or medical reasons? Marguerite says, when I was with the insurance company, we interviewed the neighbors to deny claims. Hmm. Laura says, all they have to do is read your social media. It's crazy as hell. It's
That part.
crazy as hell.
That part.
Monica said, Jesus, the neighbor. Yes. Yes, 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 yes.
Right. I mean,
The
but and
neighbor.
this is history, right? If we were going to cast our minds back to Germany during the Nazi period, I want us to first remember that Hitler was elected by a large swath of Germany to be its chancellor. This was
Mhm,
not some rogue person who just took over. This is a person who was very popular and
mhm,
won the popular vote and won the vote of the people in Germany to become Hitler. And the Reich began, and when that began, he began to divide the people in Germany based upon their isms. Who was, and at the time, anti-Semitism was humongous throughout all of Europe and much of North America. And so it was very popular to say the problem you have is the Jewish people. It's very popular in America. The problem you have is immigrants, right? And he then began to enforce people to mark themselves, to register. The entire country had to register who they were and what type of job they had and where they went. And this plan went on and on and on. This plan that he wrote about in Mein Kampf, this plan that Donald Trump co-signed in Project 2025, right? These are the same sorts of rhetoric, same sorts of plans, same sorts of actions. Divide people against their isms, begin to mark where they are, put on the gold star, the real ID, the passport, where their actions are, who they are, what they do, how they do, when they do, why they do. And when you then take action against them by force, they have no recourse because they have given you everything. Use their neighbors to find who they are. I don't need to ask you where you are. Your neighbors going to tell me you went to church at 11 o'clock at St. Mark's, and I'm going to show up at 11 o'clock at St. Mark's. And when you come out, I'll say, please get into the van. That's the world that happens if we don't
mhm,
stand up to stop it. And we're not standing up to stop it en masse. We see what's happening in California, where citizens have begun to say, no, thank you, not here. But until that is a no, thank you, not here from America, it continues forward. And unfortunately, America, they saw this part of the plan coming. This in 2025 was seen. You have to consolidate power within the executive branch if you want to be effective. So you begin to disobey the Supreme Court
mhm.
to prove the Supreme Court has no power. You have to consolidate power in the executive branch. So you begin to manipulate and pressure the houses of Congress and the Senate into an idea which is antithetical even unto itself.
Yeah.
Even unto itself. This does not speak to the core values of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or any independent. These things do not speak to their core value. This speaks to the core value of one person at the head, and
Mhm.
that is to remain in power.
Alexandra says, Joanne, a restaurant in Center City, Zio's Pizza at Ninth and Race, shut down and closed permanently. It was Latina owned and staffed. We realized why. ICE. Nicole says she agree. Joanne says, yes, David, coming right out of the diary of Anne Frank.
Page by page. Page
Alexandra
by
says,
page.
why I can't understand a Jewish man helping all of this to happen. Mm-mm-mm.
Well,
Dina
we
says,
could tell you. I mean, so the devil's writing was to allow Lord Bothwell de Rothschild uh, made sure that he could use the fantastical ideas of Zionism, which does not exist in the Torah. Please understand, but Zionism, which is this return back to Israel, as a way to ship the unwanted Jews in the anti Semitic lands of Europe and America to Jerusalem. And so, what happened after World War II was that the United States, the UN came together and Resolution 141, I believe this was what was created. And Resolution 141 created the partition for Palestine, in which a piece of the country was given without any explanation to the Jewish state to build a new Jerusalem. And that all comes out of, again, the fantastic idea of Zionism, which does not exist within the Torah, right? In
Mhm.
fact, what the Torah says is when the Messiah returns, you will go to him, and wherever he is, that becomes the New Jerusalem. The Jewish people have not declared a Messiah. So for even within the Torah, there cannot be Jerusalem until there is Messiah. You cannot set up a home until there is Christ, right? And so this is again a fighting of the, and because of that, the propaganda around Jerusalem, we have for years been destroying the lands of people in Palestine and around it. Now we want to make beachfront property out of them,
Yeah.
right? We've been destroying them in order to fund our anti-Semitic mission. I want you to understand that. It is an anti-Semitic mission to force Jews into one little hole in Jerusalem and keep them out of Europe and out of the United States. That was what the purpose of the setting up of Jerusalem was. That is the entire purpose of the setting up of Jerusalem. It is ascribed line by line in Resolution 141 in the UN Assembly's documents. And I encourage people to read that because that petition was not only a war crime at the time, it was not only spoken badly about by all Middle Eastern and African countries and some European ones saying this is really not the way we do things. But today that stands. Now, what happens in geopolitics today when we look at this area, this Jerusalem area, is that we as United States people, in order to continue the anti-Semitic behavior of keeping Jews out of the US and sending them forth to Jerusalem, have been funding Jerusalem in billions and billions of dollars and using extraordinarily wealthy Jews to continue propping up and propagandizing themselves against themselves by saying you must try to get your people to go to this one place. All of a sudden, you get a rogue person in power like Donald Trump, and he says, I don't actually care about the script. And so, what the people in the Middle East knew, the governments of places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and this other, was that you have someone now that can be purchased. And so we have the money to purchase them. And so when Donald Trump accepted the new understanding of Air Force One, the ridiculous sized, overpriced jet, what he signaled to Jerusalem is I can be bought by your enemy and I don't care about the script or the handshake deal we have in The Devil's Advocate. I'm willing to play any side of the aisle which benefits me. And so Jerusalem now and Israel is thinking, uh-oh, now what do? We fight to the death. So we start off a war that cannot be quelled in that portion of the world, and we tie our camel, if you will, right, to this odd idea of accepting a Trojan horse. What is at play here is stunning if we stop and read the history of it.
And the average person is like, yeah, this can't happen. We have three branches of government. No, we can't do this. The Supreme Court has given him access to all the Social Security files. It's the
Anything
most
that he
private
does,
thing.
well, president is a presidential act according to the Supreme Court. Before he came to office, anything the president of the United States declares a presidential act while
Cannot
he's
be charged
president,
with.
it
Yes.
cannot be charged with. So insurrection becomes a presidential act if he feels it is presidential. That is the most obscene and scary and crazy thing that has ever come from the Supreme Court in the history of the United States of America. It is to give up its seat and its power to the executive branch, an executive branch which is known for being rogue. I, 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 um, I cannot say with enough heartfelt sincerity in my life how scary it is to watch the dissolution of the United States understanding of governance, of this more
Um,
perfect union, into an obliterated powder because we, the city upon the hill, allowed it.
Yeah, a local judge in Philadelphia stopped me at the end of April, no, the end of March, early April, and said to me, I can say this to you, Andrea, because I think you understand this. He said, the United States, as we know it, is no more. Our constitution has been gutted. We are sitting here thinking we have a constitution. We're sitting here thinking there's three branches of government. He said, we judges are being terrorized. Their families are being threatened. Their children's social media files are being pulled, and they're being threatened, and all sorts of things. And so judges are capitulating quietly and saying, publicly, we're going to agree to X, Y, and Z. He said, we are done. We're one of the youngest countries in the world, and because we, the people, we've been indoctrinated for so long. All the foolishness. I kept saying, housewives of this, and yes, y'all, I'm not telling you not to watch what makes you happy, but we spend so much time on the fan waving and the happiness, and yes, find your joy. I'm not saying that. And do your research and read and Google, and we just not doing any of that. And so to people like my father, who has lived through this shiggity, he's red tea, and he's taught his children how to be red tea. And he's taught, so the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, everybody, we're going to feel something that we've never experienced before. And yet we sit here
Pondering anew.
And saying things that it can't happen. What is happening in front of our faces? Every single day we wake up, I went to bed with such trepidation. I don't know anybody right now who's going to sleep and sleeping through a peaceful night. When's the last time you had a peaceful night's rest? I haven't. I couldn't sleep on Saturday night, right? Old people are being targeted. Immigrants are being targeted. People who are born and raised in the United States who dare to disagree on any level are being targeted. Do y'all understand where we are right now? And there's a good swath of folks who are just like, well, the illegal immigrants. So they've been indoctrinated. Everything is about the illegal immigrants. Nobody's talking about folks who are being swept off the streets who are not immigrants.
The people who they're rounding up are not illegal.
That part.
They are here with visas. They are here on student aid. They are here on this and the other. They're being rounded up, plucked away, and sent away for things which are absolutely not the part or ascribed to the United States Congress. I am astonished how many people are Republican who voted for this, who are the people harboring the people who are being rounded. There's a dissonance.
Yes, a cognitive dissonance. Yes, yes.
And I.
Yep.
It's very frustrating to live in this time. I think it's even more frustrating when you are a historian and understand what that means. When you see it coming down the road, when you know what now will be. Yeah. So I say to us that what we're watching now is the movements we ascribed to you in November that were fantastical at the time, weren't they? They were unreasonable ideas, and we were being a bit much.
We were. It was too much ado about nothing, and this can't happen, and it will not. And I constantly say, I say this to my husband all the time: say nothing, speak to nobody about nothing. Yeah, but when I heard the neighbor say, well, such and such, and I'm like, how she know all of this? We cannot continue to believe that we can randomly trust anybody, because to your point, it is the neighbor.
It's a new day, honey. It's a new day. And I want you to hear this. It's a new day because it's an old day. We went back to relive what we didn't learn before. And so we all take onus and a part of the problem today. None of us can say that we're not a part of the issue that we have in America today.
Yeah, because we keep thinking that, it's so innocent. It's innocent. I'm just innocently having this conversation. It infuriates me. And there's so many people who are in this space right now. My sons, they don't have, they're kind. You can be kind without giving up information, right? I'm incredibly protective of everybody. When my husband and I first started, I said, listen, I'm a little different. We're going to need cameras around the house. We're going to need cameras inside the house. They think that nobody needs to know anything about me. I've been saying that for 15 damn years. 15. And so to the average person who didn't understand what that meant, I remember saying it at a family thing and they all giggled. And I was like, oh, y'all are giggling. You literally have to pay attention to what's going on around you. And too many people are walking around fast asleep, just sharing any old thing. Right? There are folks who I talk to, they copy, paste, repeat. They're like, well, who the hell is copy? Okay. I don't share my grandchildren's names. If someone sees my husband, it's Mr. My children, they don't know their names. I tell my friends and family members, do not post my children's names when
You
you
would
see them
be
on social media.
you would be astonished how many people have registered their neighbors on the ICE lists.
See what I mean? See
So
what I mean?
the way they find out who and where and what is with a form that is filled out with information that tells you their address, their name, their last name, the this and that, the other, blah, blah, blah. These are not people walking on random doors. These are people walking on the doors they've been told to go knock on, right? This is a public where people are submitting people not always for reasons that make sense.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so
I don't
we
like so and so and I want to get rid of them. And I know blah, 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 blah. Because
we
we talk too
we have
freaking
some
much. We talk too much.
we have some reckoning to do with ourselves, and we have some conversations to have amongst our citizenry about who are we.
Yes. And we make
And
assumptions that the neighbors like us when they don't like you because they're watching you thrive. How can I get rid of your wife or your husband? Because blah, 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 blah. We talk too damn much. Say good morning, say good afternoon. All is well. That's it. Stop talking. And
isolate
if I
yourself.
sound overly emotional about it, it's because I'm seeing people being snatched. You wonder how they just deliberately come to somebody's house. They don't know this stuff. It's your neighbors.
I remember a time when it was almost comical to terrorize someone with this sort of, oh, you'll be going out of here, next place, back to your home. And it was this hideous, it was always hideous, but it was this sort of a thing where you could say it and shake a little fear, and people said, oh, fuck you, they moved on.
Yes.
Uh,
No worries. It's my show.
I don't want you to pay any fee. But now we're in a place where that's not funny.
Oh, but it has never been funny. It
It's
has
it's
never been
it's
funny.
dangerous, and I think it's a space where we have to be cognizant of what we're doing, and it does not escape me that we were told this is where we would be and that this is where we are. And because of that truth, the other things that we said, this is what's coming, I am solidified in the idea that that is so. And
Yes.
so now we say to ourselves, put the plan into action,
Yeah.
let it go to work.
Yeah. Tiffany says, just crazy. I'm laying low. I've been told I'm living my life in fear. I said the air is different here in the United States. Monica says, speak the truth. Joanne says, we're living in the middle of a nightmare with our eyes wide open. Yes, because what we know, what we thought we knew, is not what we knew. And even as we believe we're so smart and we're watching the news, and you got to pay attention to the little things that nobody is talking about, right? And so it's too much. David says people voted for the just like they did 8 years ago. Joanne says, I think they made up the federal charges against Kilmer Garcia to railroad him and send him back to El Salvador as an example. It was a test and they passed it, right? David says, one thing I was told that would happen in Project 2025 and Agenda 47, reading is fundamental. Alexandra says, Tiffany, I agree. The energy here is so different, right? It's crazy. It's so crazy, right? Marguerite says it's your neighbors, it's your co-workers, it's your extended family that will sell you out for chump change, especially if they don't like you.
Up the
Okay,
river. Up
right?
the river.
Huh?
Up the river. Right on up
Up
the
the
river.
river, up the river. Laura says, I'm thinking that because we're not seeing things because the media is not reporting it, we're not taking it as seriously as we should be. But we have social media. There are folks reporting the stuff on social media. We've got to get out of the stuff that makes no sense and really pay attention to the stuff that does. Hear what I'm saying to you? Alexander says, Marguerite Boyd face on that part. Listen. Listen. Tiffany says, yes, I don't talk to my neighbors. I wave hi and jump in my car. My neighbor didn't know my name for 10 freaking years. 10 years. I was cool with that too. Right? It's just we're too overly friendly in a time when we just need to mind our business. When someone's got their cameras out and they're clocking you, yes, she leaves at such a time. Yes, he rolls out to go to such. He teaches over here and she does that. I don't quite know what she does, and I don't quite know how to ask what she does.
Mm.
Freaking nosy. Extreme rode through my neighborhood with a somebody. Viola says somebody rode through my neighborhood with a camera on the hood of the car when I was leaving home yesterday morning at 9:30. Alexandra says when I moved into my house, a neighbor across the street gave me the rundown of everyone on the block. Baby, that's when I knew it would be good morning, good evening, and keep it moving. I don't care how much time. There you
And
go.
keep it going.
Amen.
And
Yes.
keep it going.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now.
Yes. Nicole says, maintain community in ways we can. Watch what we say when talking about ourselves and others. Whew. David, it was kind of heavy this morning, but I'm telling you, there's coming to a place where you and I will not be having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Nicole says,
And it's
damn
going
near
to.
back to the messages in cornrows, blankets, and handshakes. I'm telling you. So all these conversations that y'all are having on social media about all the things, for me to even post about LA, it had to be serious.
And it's interesting because my social media presence is completely frivolous. It's
Yes.
events attended. It's a beautiful horse. It's a mountain. It's dancing. It's
Yes.
waltzing. It's
Yes.
I am not on social media talking about the things that we are vulnerably talking about here today.
Yes.
And I certainly am cognizant that we take a risk when we come here and we explain
Absolutely.
this to this audience, that we take a risk every day of the week and twice on Sunday, that we take a risk in City Hall, that we take a risk in our actions
Yeah.
to advise and warn of the day. It's a risk and a duty that I feel solidified in and responsible in a way that it is our duty as citizens of this country to do this. I saw Bona Hagen yesterday on the street, and he has some very powerful thought processes that he brings to City Hall every week, and in his own way. And he asked me, in the way in which I come to the rooms of governance and to the rooms of politics and to the rooms of the public, why is it? Why is it? And I said, because we have a responsibility as citizens of this United States to uphold the Constitution and this more perfect thing that we have, if we can keep it. And so I think that the if we can keep it requires each and every one of us to put on our big boy panties and boots and go out there and really speak truth into the situation, to warn and advise of the day, and to stand firm in our convictions for what we know is right and what we
Yeah.
know is wrong. So Philadelphia, it's coming. It's on the West Coast. It doesn't take that long to get from the West Coast to the East Coast, and certainly what is being set up as a gameplay on the board of chess is martial law.
I don't, 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 I don't know. Tamara says, when people find out I'm an educator, the first thing they ask is, where do I teach? Nope, I don't. I don't.
And when people say, David Jenkins, what do you do? What does he
I
say?
don't.
I don't. I don't.
And I have been telling my husband since the day we started dating. I don't tell them jack about jack. They don't need. I know I am not that impressed with myself that you need to know. And even when I'm out in the public and people say you need to get to know, nope. Josh said it yesterday. She says, "Why are you so humble? You don't tell people anything because they don't need to know."
No, no, no,
I'm
no, no.
cool. I'm absolutely cool. Let the
Watch
work
me.
speak for itself. I don't want nobody to blow a horn and pull the none of that. Let the work speak
Don't
for
give me a
itself.
parade. Don't want one.
Nothing. And
Mm-mm.
I have been very deliberate my entire life, knowing that I was born to do what I'm doing. So when people ask what you do, I don't. I don't. If I didn't have to be on these social media pages, and my goal here on these social media pages is to give you the human interest stories that'll change your lives, to make you think beyond the pale, to make you figure out some things that you need to do just by having the kind of guests that will make you think. David, you're one of those people that are making them think. I can't tell you how many pastors I've heard from who said, "My God, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to tell our congregation, and so we're like stuck." And we started listening to you when David, and we're like, okay, maybe we can tell them, wait, what, Jesus? It is not okay to parrot what you see on the news and hear on the news. What is your action beyond the parroting what you see on the news and hear every single day? What
What
is your
is
action? How are you going to
what is
protect your families? How are you going to protect yourselves? Stop freaking talking.
Yeah, what is truth, right? And that's the other thing
Yes.
is what is truth. We just listen without doing research. Every time Andrea and I have ever spoken, we encourage you to get on your computer and go look it up, to go read, right? We're sending you to places to go and do the research for yourself, and we're giving you the truth. But we want you to go. We want you to go look at it yourself. We want you to go read it so that you yourself know this is real. And when you know that this is real, you can then speak to those around you quietly, in quasi committee, quietly speak to those around you and say, this is the truth, and this is what we
And
need
not
to
on
do the
social
rest.
media.
No,
And
on
be
social
mindful
media.
because everything you say on your phone is being listened to. Just be mindful. Shut the diggity dang phones off. We told you to get the RFID bags. Put your damn phones inside of them. We told you all of this. But we're so interested. I tell you all, when you travel, don't share where you travel. We're still sharing. Oh, I went to here and I had this over here. Do you not know you're being tracked? Y'all notice I haven't talked about traveling anywhere? Black Jesus. Not that I haven't moved and done things. Y'all don't, I am done sharing that stuff with y'all. And I used to wait until after I came back, except for the road work. We'll let you know 2-3 days where we were 2-3 days before. But yo, we're too busy. I told a friend of mine the other day, I said, stop talking about how much you make. Don't discuss it. Nobody needs to know, especially in social media. This is something, yes, you feel proud, but you got it because people are being targeted. Whoo! Someone in my neighborhood stated she worked for DHS in a crowd. I had to inform them, no, I do not. I don't want to be targeted. You got to move differently. Yes, the Faraday bags that we talked about in November of 2024. That
That
everybody
again.
kept saying, oh, it's too much. Y'all are just too much. Hmm? I gotta go, David. Now I'm pissed. I'm literally pissed off because I feel like we've been talking about this and trying to warn folk, and we just kept thinking, well, I'm just being friendly.
No, no,
I've
don't be
known so and
because
so for such and such amount of years, but so and so is the one that knows all your fucking business. Excuse
all
my cutting, and will
listen.
and will change your life in a
Don't
horrible
don't
way.
believe that your words are in vain because every day people get up in the morning time to tune in to understand exactly what Mavo has to say. And so there are people who have been spared, safe, have a plan, and this, that, and the other. And one cannot save everyone. What one's duty to do is to come to such a platform and to speak truth. And that when that has been done, then you've done your job, right? And
Hmm.
at that point, you have ticked the box and you have said it. The responsibility and the onus on movement
Yep,
is on every individual
yep,
listener. And we hear in the
yep,
comments, we hear in the
yep.
questions. I can't tell you how many people I saw yesterday that doing that. I really wish that we could have spent more time on the wonderful celebration of Black Pride that happened peacefully again. One more year with no incidents of
500,000 people.
craziness.
Yep.
500,000 people on the streets of Philadelphia. That is an
Hmm.
example of how we peacefully and quietly move in protest to what is going on in the government. There was no better protest for me than to be at Adunde in all of my Ashanti. That was who we are and our nature, and it was brought forward to the public to view on display
Yep.
boldly and loudly. I went to mass before I went to Adunde in my Kende, right? That that we do on this platform, that we do on the streets is the forward movement. So I don't want you ever to believe that what you have done is in vain because you could not force the entire world into understanding and believing what is true. Because the people who have been touched have touched others, which has made an indelible mark, which cannot be erased from your history. So to that, I say thank you for having a space and a platform that does speak to truth, that does allow people to go out and research. It does take questions in live time.
Yeah.
I am I am mindful that there are media places where people are gone. There are rooms that are evaporating and disappearing because they do not do what you do, and they do not have the inertia that you have, or
Mm,
they are not solidified in the dedication to truth that you come
mm,
every day to the stage with. And so clearly, what you are doing is successful and surviving because you are authentic in who you are and what messaging you give to other people and the people you bring onto this show and to this platform. So, to that, I say, you have done the work. It is not in vain. And the people who are tuning in know that.
thank you, my brother. I love you.
Mm.
I am so glad we met on that day on
Listen,
2018,
coming
honey.
through the streets of Philadelphia.
All right, my dad. I gotta go because I have to go to the gym. Ain't nobody gonna
By now.
no, I want to hear. Love you, my
Yeah.
dad, and we'll talk soon.
Yes.
Hopefully next Monday we'll have more enlightening things to discuss. But I need you to stay
Absolutely.
tuned for the rest of this week, because honey,
Yeah. I'm
hot,
telling you, it's coming.
hot. Yeah, tomorrow morning is gonna have them going. Wait, what?
Woo!
I need y'all to prepare. Tie your camels to yourself and prepare yourself for
Yes.
tomorrow morning. I promise you. Okay? And don't say I wasn't told. Don't say I don't know. I'm giving you the information as it's coming forth. Tomorrow morning, we're going to discuss artificial intelligence and how they're smarter than us at this point and what the hell that means for us moving forward. Gather yourselves. This episode of Mornings with Mom is officially over. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye, David, darling. Bye bye.